Welcome to Mythology at Dusk. Take a slow breath. Whatever the day has held, however heavy it has been, let it settle now. Tonight, we visit the Old North. Tonight, we listen to Odin, the Allfather of the Norse, one-eyed, grey-cloaked, a wanderer, more than a king. He gave one of his eyes at Mimir's well for a single drink of wisdom, and hung 9 nights on the ash tree Yggdrasil to learn the secret of the runes. 2 ravens ride his shoulders, Hugin, thought, and Munin, memory, and each dawn they fly out across the 9 worlds and return to whisper what they have seen. Tonight we follow him slowly, through the old Icelandic Eddas, from the shaping of the world to the wolf that waits for him at the end of it. Before we begin, leave a comment and tell me where you are listening from tonight and what time it is for you right now. Every comment helps this small channel reach someone else who needs quiet tonight. And if Mythology at Dusk has helped you sleep, consider subscribing so tomorrow night's story is ready when you are. Now close your eyes, take a slow breath, let the old stories carry you. Let us begin. The shaping of the world. From of the primordial state of the universe. 4. But with what did he begin? Or what was the beginning of things? Demanded Gangler. Here, replied Har, what is said in the Voluspa. 'Twas time's first dawn, when naught yet was, nor sand nor sea, nor cooling wave. Earth was not there, nor heaven above, naught save a void and yawning gulf, but verdure none. Many ages before the earth was made, added Jafnhar, was Niflheim formed, in the middle of which lies the spring called Hvergelmir, from which flow 12 rivers, Gjoll being the nearest to the gate of the abode of death. But, first of all, continued 3D, there was in the southern region, sphere, the world called Muspel. It is a world too luminous and glowing to be entered by those who are not indigenous there. He who sitteth on its borders, or the land's end, to guard it, is named Surtur. In his hand he beareth a flaming falchion, and at the end of the world shall issue forth to combat, and shall vanquish all the gods, and consume the universe with fire. Origin of the Hrimthursar, or frost giants. 5. Tell me, said Gangler, what was the state of things ere the races mingled, and nations came into being? When the rivers that are called Elivagar had flowed far from their sources, replied Har, the venom which they rolled along hardened, as does dross that runs from a furnace, and became ice. When the rivers flowed no longer, and the ice stood still, the vapor arising from the venom gathered over it, and froze to rime, and in this manner were formed, in Ginnungagap, many layers of congealed vapor, piled one over the other. That part of Ginnungagap, added Jafnhar, that lies towards the north was thus filled with heavy masses of gelid vapor and ice, whilst everywhere within were whirlwinds and fleeting mists. But the southern part of Ginnungagap was lighted by the sparks and flakes that flew into it from Muspelheim. Thus, continued 3D, whilst freezing cold and gathering gloom proceeded from Niflheim, that part of Ginnungagap looking towards Muspelheim was filled with glowing radiancy, the intervening space remaining calm and light as wind-still air. And when the heated blast met the gelid vapor, it melted it into drops, and, by the might of him who sent the heat, these drops quickened into life and took a human semblance. The being thus formed was named Ymir, but the frost giants call him Orgelmir. From him descend the race of the frost giants, Hrimthursar, as it is said in the Voluspa. From Vidolf come all witches, from Vilmeith all wizards, from Svarthofdi, all poison seethers, and all giants from Ymir. And the giant Vafthrudnir, when Gangrad asked, "Whence came Orgelmir, the first of the sons of giants?" answered, "The Elivagar cast out drops of venom that quickened into a giant. From him spring all our race, and hence are we so strong and mighty." "How did the race of Ymir spread itself?" asked Gangler. "Or dost thou believe that this giant was a god?" "We are far from believing him to have been a god," replied Har, "for he was wicked as are all of his race, whom we call frost giants. And it is said that, when Ymir slept, he fell into a sweat, and from the pit of his left arm was born a man and a woman, and one of his feet engendered with the other a son, from whom descend the frost giants, and we therefore call Ymir the old frost giant. Of the cow Audhumla, and the birth of Odin." 6. "Where dwelt Ymir, and on what did he live?" asked Gangler. "Immediately after the gelid vapours had been resolved into drops," replied Kar, "there was formed out of them the cow named Audhumla. 4 streams of milk ran from her teats, and thus fed she Ymir." "But on what did the cow feed?" questioned Gangler. "The cow," answered Har, "supported herself by licking the stones that were covered with salt and hoar frost. The first day that she licked these stones, there sprang from them, towards evening, the hairs of a man, the second day a head, and on the third an entire man, who was endowed with beauty, agility, and power. He was called Bur, and was the father of Bor, who took for his wife Besla, the daughter of the giant Bolthorn. And they had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve, and it is our belief that this Odin, with his brothers, ruleth both heaven and earth, and that Odin is his true name, and that he is the most mighty of all the gods. How the sons of Bor slew Ymir, and from his body made heaven and earth. 7. "Was there," asked Gangler, "any kind of equality or any degree of good understanding between these 2 races?" "Far from it," replied Har, "for the sons of Bor slew the giant Ymir, and when he fell there ran so much blood from his wounds that the whole race of frost giants was drowned in it, except a single giant, who saved himself with his household. He is called by the giants Bergelmir. He escaped by going on board his bark, and with him went his wife, and from them are descended the frost giants." 8. "And what became of the sons of Bor, whom ye look upon as gods?" asked Gangler. "To relate this," replied Har, "is no trivial matter. They dragged the body of Ymir into the middle of Ginnunga Gap, and of it formed the earth. From Ymir's blood they made the seas and waters, from his flesh the land, from his bones the mountains, and his teeth and jaws, together with some bits of broken bones, served them to make the stones and pebbles. With the blood that ran from his wounds," added Jafnhar, "they made the vast ocean, in the midst of which they fixed the earth, the ocean encircling it as a ring, and hardy will he be who attempts to pass those waters. From his skull," continued Thridi, "they formed the heavens, which they placed over the earth, and set a dwarf at the corner of each of the 4 quarters. These dwarfs are called East, West, North, and South. They afterwards took the wandering sparks and red-hot flakes that had been cast out of Muspelheim, and placed them in the heavens, both above and below, to give light unto the world, and assigned to every other errant coruscation a prescribed locality and motion. Hence it is recorded in ancient lore that from this time were marked out the days and nights and seasons. Such are the events that took place ere the earth obtained the form it now beareth. Truly great were the deeds ye tell me of, exclaimed Gangler, and wondrous in all its parts is the work thereby accomplished. But how is the earth fashioned? It is round without, replied Har, and encircled by the deep ocean, the outward shores of which were assigned for a dwelling to the race of giants. But within, round about the earth, they, the sons of Bor, raised a bulwark against turbulent giants, employing for this structure Ymir's eyebrows. To this bulwark they gave the name of Midgard. They afterwards tossed Ymir's brains into the air, and they became the clouds, for thus we find it recorded. Of Ymir's flesh was formed the earth, of his sweat, blood, the seas, of his bones, the mountains, of his hair the trees, of his skull the heavens. But with his eyebrows the blithe gods built Midgard for the sons of men, whilst from his brains the lowering clouds were fashioned. From of the formation of the first man and woman, 9. To make heaven and earth, to fix the sun and the moon in the firmament, and mark out the days and seasons, were, indeed, important labours, said Gangler. But whence came the men who at present dwell in the world? One day, replied Har, as the sons of Bor were walking along the sea beach, they found 2 stems of wood, out of which they shaped a man and a woman. The first, Odin, infused into them life and spirit. The second, Vili, endowed them with reason and the power of motion. The third, Vi, gave them speech and features, hearing and vision. The man they called Ask, and the woman, Embla. From these 2 descend the whole human race whose assigned dwelling was within Midgard. Then the sons of Bor built in the middle of the universe the city called Asgard, where dwell the gods and their kindred, and from that abode work out so many wondrous things, both on the earth and in the heavens above it. There is in that city a place called Hlidskjalf, and when Odin is seated there on his lofty throne, he sees over the whole world, discerns all the actions of men, and comprehends whatever he contemplates. His wife is Frigga, the daughter of Fjorgyn, and they and their offspring form the race that we call Aesir, a race that dwells in Asgard the Old, and the regions around it, and that we know to be entirely divine. Wherefore Odin may justly be called Allfather, for he is verily the father of all, of gods as well as of men, and to his power all things owe their existence. Earth is his daughter and his wife, and with her he had his firstborn son, Asa Thor, who is endowed with strength and valour, and therefore quelleth he everything that hath life. Odin, the supreme deity. From of the supreme deity. 3. Gangler thus began his discourse. Who is the first, or eldest of the gods? In our language, replied Har, he is called Allfather, All-Father, or the father of all. But in the old Asgard, he had 12 names. Where is this god? Said Gangler. What is his power? And what hath he done to display his glory? He liveth, replied Har, from all ages. He governeth all realms, and swayeth all things great and small. He hath formed, added Jafnhar, heaven and earth, and the air, and all things thereunto belonging. And what is more, continued 3D, he hath made man, and given him a soul which shall live and never perish, though the body shall have mouldered away, or have been burnt to ashes. And all that are righteous shall dwell with him in the place called Gimli, or Vingolf, but the wicked shall go to hell, and thence to Niflhel, which is below, in the 9th world. And where did this god remain before he made heaven and earth? Demanded Gangler. He was then, replied Har, with the Hrimthursar. From of Odin, 21. I must now ask thee, said Gangler, who are the gods that men are bound to believe in? There are 12 gods, replied Har, to whom divine honours ought to be rendered. Nor are the goddesses, added Jafnhar, less divine and mighty. The first and eldest of the Aesir, continued 3D, is Odin. He governs all things, and, although the other deities are powerful, they all serve and obey him as children do their father. Frigga is his wife. She foresees the destinies of men, but never reveals what is to come. For thus it is said that Odin himself told Loki, "Senseless Loki, why wilt thou pry into futurity? Frigga alone knoweth the destinies of all, though she telleth them never." Odin is named Allfather, All-Father, because he is the father of all the gods, and also Vafthrudnir, choosing father, because he chooses for his sons all of those who fall in combat. For their abode he has prepared Valhalla and Vingolf, where they are called unhurried, heroes or champions. Odin is also called Hangagud, Haptagud, and Farmagud, and, besides these, was named in many ways when he went to King Geirrauda, 49 names in all. A great many names, indeed, exclaimed Gangler. Surely that man must be very wise who knows them all distinctly, and can tell on what occasions they were given. It requires, no doubt, replied Har, a good memory to recollect readily all these names, but I will tell thee in a few words what principally contributed to confer them upon him. It was the great variety of languages, for the various nations were obliged to translate his name into their respective tongues, in order that they might supplicate and worship him. Some of his names, however, have been owing to adventures that happened to him on his journeys, and which are related in old stories. Nor canst thou ever pass for a wise man if thou are not able to give an account of these wonderful adventures. From of the horse, Sleipnir, 43. Thou madst mention, said Gangler, of the horse Sleipnir. To whom does he belong, and what is there to say respecting him? Thou seemest to know nothing either about Sleipnir or his origin, replied Har, but thou wilt no doubt find what thou wilt hear worthy of thy notice. Once on a time when the gods were constructing their abodes, and had already finished Midgard and Valhalla, a certain artificer came and offered to build them, in the space of 3.5 years, a residence so well fortified that they should be perfectly safe from the incursion of the frost giants, and the giants of the mountains, even although they should have penetrated within Midgard. But he demanded for his reward the goddess Freya, together with the sun and moon. After long deliberation, the Aesir agreed to his terms, provided he would finish the whole work himself without anyone's assistance, and all within the space of 1 winter. But if anything remained unfinished on the first day of summer, he should forfeit the recompense agreed on. On being told these terms, the artificer stipulated that he should be allowed the use of his horse, called Svadilfari, and this, by the advice of Loki, was granted to him. He accordingly set to work on the first day of winter, and during the night let his horse draw stone for the building. The enormous size of the stones struck the Aesir with astonishment, and they saw clearly that the horse did 1/2 more of the toilsome work than his master. Their bargain, however, had been concluded in the presence of witnesses, and confirmed by solemn oaths. For without these precautions, a giant would not have thought himself safe among the Aesir, especially when Thor returned from an expedition he had then undertaken towards the east against evil demons. As the winter drew to a close, the building was far advanced, and the bulwarks were sufficiently high and massive to render this residence impregnable. In short, when it wanted but 3 days to summer, the only part that remained to be finished was the gateway. Then sat the gods on their seats of justice and entered into consultation, inquiring of one another who among them could have advised to give Freya away to Jotunheim, or to plunge the heavens in darkness by permitting the giant to carry away the sun and moon. They all agreed that no one but Loki, the son of Laufey, and the author of so many evil deeds, could have given such bad counsel, and that he should be put to a cruel death if he did not contrive some way or other to prevent the artificer from completing his task and obtaining the stipulated recompense. They immediately proceeded to lay hands on Loki, who, in his fright, promised upon oath that let it cost him what it would, he would so manage matters that the man should lose his reward. That very night, when the artificer went with Svadilfari for building stone, a mare suddenly ran out of a forest and began to neigh. Oh, the horse, being thus excited, broke loose and ran after the mare into the forest, which obliged the man also to run after his horse, and thus between one and the other the whole night was lost, so that at dawn the work had not made the usual progress. The man, seeing that he had no other means of completing his task, resumed his own gigantic stature, and the gods now clearly perceived that it was in reality a mountain giant who had come amongst them. No longer regarding their oaths, they, therefore, called on Thor, who immediately ran to their assistance, and lifting up his mallet, Mjolnir paid the workman his wages, not with the sun and moon, and not even by sending him back to Jotunheim, for with the first blow he shattered the giant's skull to pieces and hurled him headlong into Niflhel. But Loki had run such a race with Svadilfari that shortly after he bore a grey foal with 8 legs. This is the horse Sleipnir, which excels all horses ever possessed by gods or men. The Joys of Valhalla. From Of the Joys of Valhalla. 39. If it be as thou hast told me, said Gangler, that all men who have fallen in fight since the beginning of the world are gone to Odin, in Valhalla, what has he to give them to eat? For methinks there must be a great crowd there. What thou sayest is quite true, replied Har. The crowd there is indeed great, but great though it be, it will still increase, and will be thought too little when the wolf cometh. But however great the band of men in Valhalla may be, the flesh of the boar Saehrimnir will more than suffice for their sustenance. For although this boar is sodden every morning, he becomes whole again every night. But there are few, methinks, who are wise enough to give thee, in this respect, a satisfactory answer to thy question. The cook is called Andrimnir, and the kettle Eldrimnir. As it is said, Andrimnir cooks in Eldrimnir, Saehrimnir. 'Tis the best of flesh, though few know how much is required for the Einherjar. But has Odin, said Gangler, the same food as the heroes? Odin, replied Har, gives the meat that is set before him to 2 wolves, called Geri and Freki, for he himself stands in no need of food. Wine is for him both meat and drink. 2 ravens sit on Odin's shoulders and whisper in his ear the tidings and events they have heard and witnessed. They are called Hugin and Munin. He sends them out at dawn of day to fly over the whole world, and they return at eve towards mealtime. Hence it is that Odin knows so many things, and is called the Raven's God, as it is said. Hugin and Munin, each dawn take their flight earth's fields over. I fear me for Hugin, lest he come not back, but much more for Munin. 40. What have the heroes to drink? Said Gangler. In sufficient quantity to correspond to their plentiful supply of meat, do they only drink water? A very silly question is that, replied Har. Dost thou imagine that Allfather would invite kings and jarls and other great men and give them nothing to drink but water? In that case, methinks, many of those who had endured the greatest hardships and received deadly wounds in order to obtain access to Valhalla would find that they had paid too great a price for their water drink, and would indeed have reason to complain were they there to meet with no better entertainment. But thou wilt see that the case is quite otherwise. For the she-goat, named Hydrun, stands above Valhalla and feeds on the leaves of a very famous tree called Lerath, and from her teats flows mead in such great abundance that every day a stoop, large enough to hold more than would suffice for all the heroes, is filled with it. Verily, said Gangler, a mighty useful goat is this, and methinks the tree she feeds on must have very singular virtues. Still more wonderful, replied Har, is what is told of the stag Allfather. This stag also stands over Valhalla and feeds upon the leaves of the same tree, and whilst he is feeding, so many drops fall from his antlers down into Hvergelmir that they furnish sufficient water for the rivers that issuing thence flow through the celestial abodes. 41. Wondrous things are these which thou tellest me of, said Gangler, and Valhalla must needs be an immense building, but methinks there must often be a great press at the door among such a number of people constantly thronging in and out. Why dost thou not ask, replied Har, how many doors there are, and what are their dimensions? Then wouldst thou be able to judge whether there is any difficulty in going in and out. Know, then, that there is no lack of either seats or doors, as it is said in Grim Nismal. 500 doors and 40 more methinks are in Valhalla. 800 heroes through each door shall issue forth against the wolf to combat. 42. A mighty band of men must be in Valhalla, said Gangler, and methinks Odin must be a great chieftain to command such a numerous host. But how do the heroes pass their time when they are not drinking? Every day, replied Har. As soon as they have dressed themselves, they ride out into the court or field, and they fight until they cut each other to pieces. This is their pastime. But when mealtime approaches, they remount their steeds and return to drink in Valhalla, as it is said. The Einherjar all on Odin's plain hew daily each other, while chosen the slain are. From the fray they then ride, and drink ale with the Aesir. Thou hast thus reason to say that Odin is great and mighty, for there are many proofs of this, as it is said in the very words of the Aesir. The ash Yggdrasil is the first of trees, as Skidbladnir of ships, Odin of Aesir, Sleipnir of steeds, Bifrost of bridges, Bragi of bards, Habrok of hawks, and Garm of hounds is. Odin's sacrifice for the runes. From Odin's rune song, 140. I know that I hung on a windrock tree 9 whole nights with a spear wounded, and to Odin offered myself to myself on that tree, of which no one knows from what root it springs. 141. Bread no one gave me, nor a horn of drink. Downward I peered, to runes applied myself, wailing learnt them, then fell down thence. 142. Potent songs 9 from the famed son I learned of Bolthorn, Bestla's sire, and a draught obtained of the precious mead, drawn from Odraria. 143. Then I began to bear fruit, and to know many things. to grow and well thrive. Word by word I sought out words, fact by fact I sought out facts. 144. Runes thou wilt find, and explained characters, very large characters, very potent characters, which the great speaker depicted, and the high powers formed, and the powers prince graved. 145. Odin among the Aesir, but among the Alfar, Dain, and Dvalin for the dwarfs, Asvid for the Jotuns, some I myself graved. 146. Knowest thou how to grave them? Knowest thou how to expound them? Knowest thou how to depict them? Knowest thou how to prove them? Knowest thou how to pray? Knowest thou how to offer? Knowest thou how to send? Knowest thou how to consume? 147. 'Tis better not to pray than too much offer. A gift ever looks to a return. 'Tis better not to send than too much consume. So Thund graved before the origin of men, where he ascended, to whence he afterwards came. 148. Those songs I know, which the king's wife knows not, nor son of man. Help the first is called, for that will help thee against strifes and cares. 149. For the second I know, what the sons of men require, who will as leeches live. 150. For the third I know, if I have great need to restrain my foes, the weapon's edge I deaden, of my adversaries nor arms nor wiles harm aught. 151. For the fourth I know, if men place bonds on my limbs, I so sing that I can walk. The fetter starts from my feet, and the manacle from my hands. 152. For the fifth I know, if I see a shot from a hostile hand, a shaft flying amid the host, so swift it cannot fly that I cannot arrest it, if only I get sight of it. 153. For the sixth I know, if one wounds me with a green tree's roots. Also, if a man declares hatred to me, harm shall consume them sooner than me. 154. For the seventh I know, if a lofty house I see blaze o'er its inmates, so furiously it shall not burn that I cannot save it. That song I can sing. 155. For the eighth I know, what to all is useful to learn, where hatred grows among the sons of men, that I can quickly assuage. 156. War, for the ninth I know, if I stand in need my bark on the water to save, I can the wind on the waves allay, and the sea lull. 157. For the 10th I know, if I see trollwives sporting in air, I can so operate that they will forsake their own forms and their own minds. 158. For the 11th I know, if I have to lead my ancient friends to battle, under their shields I sing, and with power they go safe to the fight, safe from the fight, safe on every side they go. 159. For the 12th I know, if on a tree I see a corpse swinging from a halter, I can so grave and in runes depict, that the man shall walk, and with me converse. 160. For the 13th I know, if on a young man I sprinkle water, he shall not fall, though he into battle come. That man shall not sink before swords. 161. For the 14th I know, if in the society of men I have to enumerate the gods, Aesir and Allfather, I know the distinctions of all. This few unskilled can do. 162. For the 15th I know what the dwarf Theodraria sang before Delling's doors. Strength he sang to the Aesir, and to the Allfather prosperity, wisdom to Hroptatir. 163. For the 16th I know, if a modest maiden's favour and affection I desire to possess, the soul I change of the white-armed damsel, and wholly turn her mind. 164. For the 17th I know, that young maiden will reluctantly avoid me. These songs, Lord Vafthrudnir, thou wilt long have lacked, yet it may be good if thou understandest them, profitable if thou learnest them. 165. For the 18th I know that which I never teach to maid or wife of man, All is better what one only knows. This is the closing of the songs. Save her alone who clasps me in her arms, or is my sister. 166. Now are sung the High One's songs, in the High One's hall, to the sons of men all useful, but useless to the Jotun sons. Hail to him who has sung them, hail to him who knows them. May he profit who has learnt them. Hail to those who have listened to them. Footnotes. Footnote 24. The first 8 strophes of this composition require an explanation which I am incompetent to afford. They have had many interpreters and as many interpretations. The idea of Odin hanging on a tree would seem to have been suggested by what we read of the grove at Uppsala, or Sigtuna, in which the victims offered to that deity were suspended from the trees. In the guise of an unknown wanderer, Odin may be supposed to have been captured and thus offered to himself. It no doubt refers to some lost legend. Footnote 25. Probably, send them, the runes, forth on their several missions. Footnote 26. The miraculous powers here ascribed by Odin to himself bear, in many instances, a remarkable similarity to those attributed to him by Snorri. Footnote 27. The ancient inhabitants of the north believed that the roots of trees were particularly fitted for hurtful trolldom, or witchcraft, and that wounds caused thereby were mortal. In India, a similar superstition prevails of the hurtfulness of the roots of trees. The Riddle-contest with Vafthrudnir. From the Lay of Vafthrudnir, Odin visits the giant, Jötun Vafthrudnir, for the purpose of proving his knowledge. They propose questions relative to the cosmogony of the Northern Creed, on the conditions that the baffled party forfeit his head. The Jötun incurs the penalty. Odin. 1. Counsel thou me now, Frigg, as I long to go Vafthrudnir to visit. Great desire, I say, I have, in ancient lore, with that all-wise Jötun to contend. Frigg. 2. At home to bide Allfather I would counsel, in the gods' dwellings, because no Jötun is, I believe, so mighty as is Vafthrudnir. Odin. 3. Much have I journeyed, much experienced, mighty ones many proved, but this I fain would know, how in Vafthrudnir's halls it is. Frigg. 4. In safety mayest thou go, in safety return, in safety on thy journeyings be, may thy wit avail thee, when thou, father of men, shalt hold converse with the Jötun. 5. Then went Odin the law to prove of that all-wise Jötun. To the hall he came, which him's father owned. Ig went forth within. Odin. 6. Hail to thee, Vafthrudnir, to thy hall I am now come, thyself to see, for I fain would know, whether thou art a cunning and all-wise Jötun. Vafthrudnir. 7. What man is this, that in my habitation by word addresses me? Out thou goest not from our halls, if thou art not the wiser. Odin. 8. Ganrad is my name. From my journey I am come thirsty to thy halls, needing hospitality, for I long have journeyed, and kind reception from thee, Jötun. Vafthrudnir. 9. Why then, Ganrad, speakest thou from the floor? Take in the hall a seat, then shall be proved which knows most, the guest or the ancient talker. Ganrad. 10. A poor man should, who to a rich man comes, speak usefully or hold his tongue. Overmuch talk brings him, I ween, no good, who visits an austere man. Vafthrudnir. 11. Tell me, Ganrad, since on the floor thou wilt prove thy proficiency, how the horse is called that draws each day forth over humankind. Ganrad. 12. Skinfaxi he is named, that the bright day draws forth over humankind. Of coursers he is best accounted among the reed Goths. Ever sheds light that horse's mane. Vafthrudnir. 13. Tell me now, Ganrad, since on the floor thou wilt prove thy proficiency, how that steed is called, which from the east draws night o'er the beneficent powers. Ganrad. 14. Hrimfaxi he is called, that each night draws forth over the beneficent powers. He from his bit lets fall drops every morn, whence in the dales comes dew. Vafthrudnir. 15. More tell me, Ganrad, since on the floor thou wilt prove thy proficiency, how the stream is called, which earth divides between the Jotuns and the gods. Ganrad. 16. Ifing the stream is called, which earth divides between the Jotuns and the gods. Open shall it run throughout all time. On that stream no ice shall be. Vafthrudnir. 17. Tell me, Ganrad, since on the floor thou wilt prove thy proficiency, how that plain is called, wherein fight shall meet Surt and the gentle gods. Ganrad. 18. Vigrid the plain is called, wherein fight shall meet Surt and the gentle gods. 100 rasts it is on every side. That plain is to them decreed. Vafthrudnir. 19. Wise art thou, O guest. Approach the Jotun's bench, and sitting let us together talk. We will our heads in the hall pledge, guest for wise utterance. Ganrad. 20. Tell me first, if thy wit suffices, and thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, whence first came the earth, and the high heaven, thou, sagacious Jotun. Vafthrudnir. 21. From Ymir's flesh the earth was formed, and from his bones the hills, the heaven from the skull of that ice-cold giant, and from his blood the sea. Ganrad. 22. Tell me secondly, if thy wit suffices, and thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, whence came the moon, which over mankind passes, and the sun likewise. Vafthrudnir. 23. Mundilfori hight he, who the moon's father is, and eke the suns. Round heaven journey each day they must, to count years for men. Ganrad. 24. Tell me thirdly, since thou art called wise, and if thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, whence came the day, which over people passes, and night with waning moons. Vafthrudnir. 25. Delling hight he who the day's father is, but night was of Nervi born. The new and waning moons the beneficent powers created, to count years for men. Ganrad. 26. Tell me fourthly, since they pronounce thee sage, and if thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, whence winter came, and warm summer first among the wise gods. Vafthrudnir. 27. Vinsval hight he, who winter's father is, and Svasud's summers. Yearly they both shall ever journey, until the powers perish. Ganrad. 28. Tell me fifthly, since they pronounce thee sage, and if thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, which of the Aesir earliest, or of Ymir's sons, in days of old existed. Vafthrudnir. 29. Countless winters, ere earth was formed, was Bergelmir born. Thrugelmir was his sire, his grandsire Orgelmir. Ganrad. 30. Tell me sixthly, since thou art called wise, and if thou, Vafthrudnir, knowest, whence first came Orgelmir, among the Jotun's sons, thou sagacious Jotun. Vafthrudnir. 31. From Elivagar sprang venom drops, which grew till they became a Jotun, but sparks flew from the south world. To the ice the fire gave life. Ganrad. 33. Tell me seventhly, since thou art called wise, and if thou knowest, Vafthrudnir, how he children begat, the bold Jotun, as he had no giantess's company. Vafthrudnir. 33. Under the armpit grew, 'tis said, of the Hrimthurs, a girl and boy together, foot with foot begat, of that wise Jotun, a six-headed son. Ganrad. 34. Tell me eighthly, since thou art called wise, and if thou knowest, Vafthrudnir, what thou doest first remember, or earliest knowest, thou art an all-wise Jotun. Vafthrudnir. 35. Countless winters, ere earth was formed, Bergelmir was born, that I first remember, when that wise Jotun in an ark was laid. Ganrad. 36. Tell me ninthly, since thou art called wise, and if thou knowest, Vafthrudnir, whence the wind comes, that over ocean passes, itself invisible to man. Vafthrudnir. 37. Hraesvelg he is called, who at the end of heaven sits, a Jotun in an eagle's plumage. From his wings comes, it is said, the wind, that over all men passes. Ganrad. 38. Tell me tenthly, since thou all the origin of the gods knowest, Vafthrudnir, whence Njord came among the Aesir's sons. O'er fanes and offersteads he rules by hundreds, yet was not among the Aesir born. Vafthrudnir. 39. In Vanaheim wise powers him created, and to the gods a hostage gave. At the world's dissolution, he will return to the wise Vanir. Ganrad. 40. Tell me eleventhly, since all the condition of the gods thou knowest, Vafthrudnir, what the Einherjar do in Herfather's halls, until the powers perish. Vafthrudnir. 41. All the Einherjar in Odin's halls each day together fight, the fallen they choose, and from the conflict ride, beer with the Aesir drink, of Saerimnir eat their fill, then sit in harmony together. Ganrad. 42. Tell me twelfthly, as thou all the condition of the gods knowest, Vafthrudnir, of the Jotun's secrets, and of all the gods, say what truest is, thou all-knowing Jotun. Vafthrudnir. 43. Of the secrets of the Jotuns and of all the gods, I can truly tell, for I have over each world travelled. To 9 worlds I came, to Niflhel beneath. Here die men from hell. Ganrad. 44. Much have I journeyed, much experienced, mighty ones many proved. What mortals will live, when the great Fimbul winter shall from men have passed? Vafthrudnir. 45. Lif and Lifthrasir, but they will be concealed in Hodmimir's holt. The morning dews they will have for food. From them shall men be born. Ganrad. 46. Much have I journeyed, much experienced, mighty ones many proved. Whence will come the sun in that fair heaven, when Fenrir has this devoured? Vafthrudnir. 47. A daughter shall Allfather bear, ere Fenrir shall have swallowed her. The maid shall ride, when the powers die, on her mother's course. Ganrad. 48. Much have I journeyed, etc. Who are the maidens that o'er the ocean travel, wise of spirit, journey? Vafthrudnir. 49. O'er people's dwellings 3 descend of Mugthrasir's maidens, the sole Hamingjur who are in the world, although with Jotuns nurtured. Ganrad. 50. Much have I journeyed, etc. Which of the Aesir will rule o'er the gods' possession, when Surt's fire shall be quenched? Vafthrudnir. 51. Vidar and Vali will the gods' holy fanes inhabit, when Surt's fire shall be quenched. Modi and Magni will Mjolnir possess, and warfare strive to end. Ganrad. 52. Much have I journeyed, etc. What of Odin will the life's end be, when the powers perish? Vafthrudnir. 53. The wolf will the father of men devour. Him Vidar will avenge. He his cold jaws will cleave, in conflict with the wolf. Ganrad. 54. Much have I journeyed, etc. What said Odin in his son's ear, ere he on the pile was laid? Vafthrudnir. 55. That no one knoweth, what thou in days of old saidst in thy son's ear. With dying mouth my ancient sores I have said, and the gods' destruction. With Odin I have contended in wise utterances. Of men thou ever art the wisest. Loki and the binding of Fenrir. From of Loki and his progeny. 34. There is another deity, continued Har, reckoned in the number of the Aesir, whom some call the calumniator of the gods, the contriver of all fraud and mischief, and the disgrace of gods and men. His name is Loki, or Loptur. He is the son of the giant Farbauti. His mother is Laufey, or Null. His brothers are Bylist and Helblindi. Loki is handsome and well-made, but of a very fickle mood, and most evil disposition. He surpasses all beings in those arts called cunning and perfidy. Many a time has he exposed the gods to very great perils, and often extricated them again by his artifices. His wife is called Siguna, and their son Nari. 35. Loki, continued Har, has likewise had 3 children by Angabodi, a giantess of Jotunheim. The first is the wolf Fenrir, the second Jormungand, the Midgard serpent, the third Hela, death. The gods were not long ignorant that these monsters continued to be bred up in Jotunheim, and, having had recourse to divination, became aware of all the evils they would have to suffer from them. Their being sprung from such a mother was a bad presage, and from such a sire was still worse. Allfather therefore deemed it advisable to send one of the gods to bring them to him. When they came, he threw the serpent into that deep ocean by which the earth is engirdled. But the monster has grown to such an enormous size that, holding his tail in his mouth, he encircles the whole earth. Hela he cast into Niflheim, and gave her power over 9 worlds, regions, into which she distributes those who are sent to her, that is to say, all who die through sickness or old age. Here she possesses a habitation protected by exceedingly high walls and strongly barred gates. Her hall is called Elvidnir. Hunger is her table, starvation, her knife, delay, her man, slowness, her maid, precipice, her threshold, care, her bed, and burning anguish forms the hangings of her apartments. The one half of her body is livid, the other half the colour of human flesh. She may therefore easily be recognized, the more so as she has a dreadfully stern and grim countenance. The wolf Fenrir was bred up among the gods, but Tyr alone had the daring to go and feed him. Nevertheless, when the gods perceived that he every day increased prodigiously in size, and that the oracles warned them that he would one day become fatal to them, they determined to make a very strong iron fetter for him, which they called lading. Taking this fetter to the wolf, they bade him try his strength on it. Fenrir, perceiving that the enterprise would not be very difficult for him, let them do what they pleased, and then, by great muscular exertion, burst the chain and set himself at liberty. The gods, having seen this, made another fetter, half as strong again as the former, which they called Dromi, and prevailed on the wolf to put it on, assuring him that, by breaking this, he would give an undeniable proof of his vigour. The wolf saw well enough that it would not be so easy to break this fetter, but finding at the same time that his strength had increased since he broke lading, and thinking that he could never become famous without running some risk, voluntarily submitted to be chained. When the gods told him that they had finished their task, Fenrir shook himself violently, stretched his limbs, rolled on the ground, and at last burst his chains, which flew in pieces all around him. He then freed himself from Dromi, which gave rise to the proverb, to get loose out of lading, or to dash out of Dromi, when anything is to be accomplished by strong efforts. From binding the wolf Fenrir. After this, the gods despaired of ever being able to bind the wolf, wherefore Allfather sent Skirnir, the messenger of Frey, into the country of the dark elves, Svartalfaheim, to engage certain dwarfs to make the fetter called Gleipnir. It was fashioned out of 6 things, to wit, the noise made by the footfall of a cat, the beards of women, the roots of stones, the sinews of bears, the breath of fish, and the spittle of birds. Though thou mayest not have heard of these things before, thou mayest easily convince thyself that we have not been telling thee lies. Thou must have seen that women have no beards, that cats make no noise when they run, and that there are no roots under stones. Now I know what has been told thee to be equally true, although there may be some things thou art not able to furnish a proof of. I believe what thou hast told me to be true, replied Gangler, for what thou hast adduced in corroboration of thy statement is conceivable. But how was the fetter smithied? This can I tell thee, replied Har, that the fetter was as smooth and soft as a silken string, and yet, as thou wilt presently hear, of very great strength. When it was brought to the gods, they were profuse in their thanks to the messenger for the trouble he had given himself, and taking the wolf with them to the island called Lyngvi, in the lake Vafthrudnir, they showed him the cord, and expressed their wish that he would try to break it, assuring him at the same time that it was somewhat stronger than its thinness would warrant a person in supposing it to be. They took it themselves, one after another, in their hands, and after attempting in vain to break it, said, "Thou alone, Fenrir, art able to accomplish such a feat." "Methinks," replied the wolf, "that I shall acquire no fame in breaking such a slender cord. But if any artifice has been employed in making it, slender though it seems, it shall never come on my feet." The gods assured him that he would easily break a limber silken cord, since he had already burst asunder iron fetters of the most solid construction. "But if thou shouldst not succeed in breaking it," they added, "thou wilt show that thou art too weak to cause the gods any fear, and we will not hesitate to set thee at liberty without delay." "I fear me much," replied he wolf, "that if ye once bind me so fast that I shall be unable to free myself by my own efforts, ye will be in no haste to unloose me. Loath am I, therefore, to have this cord wound round me, but in order that ye may not doubt my courage, I will consent, provided one of you put his hand into my mouth as a pledge that ye intend me no deceit." The gods wistfully looked at each other, and found that they had only the choice of 2 evils, until Tyr stepped forward and intrepidly put his right hand between the monster's jaws. Hereupon the gods, having tied up the wolf, he forcibly stretched himself as he had formerly done, and used all his might to disengage himself. But the more efforts he made, the tighter became the cord, until all the gods, except Tyr, who lost his hand, burst into laughter at the sight. When the gods saw that the wolf was effectually bound, they took the chain called Gelgja, which was fixed to the fetter, and drew it through the middle of a large rock named Gjol, which they sank very deep into the earth. Afterwards, to make it still more secure, they fastened the end of the cord to a massive stone called Thviti, which they sank still deeper. the wolf made in vain the most violent efforts to break loose, and opening his tremendous jaws, endeavored to bite them. The gods, seeing this, thrust a sword into his mouth, which pierced his underjaw to the hilt, so that the point touched the palate. He then began to howl horribly, and since that time the foam flows continually from his mouth in such abundance that it forms the river called Von. There will he remain until Ragnarok. Verily, said Gangler, an evil progeny is that of Loki, yet most mighty and powerful. But since the gods have so much to fear from the wolf, why did they not slay him? The gods have so much respect for the sanctity of their peace steads, replied Har, that they would not stain them with the blood of the wolf, although prophecy had intimated to them that he must one day become the bane of Odin. The Death of Baldur. From the Death of Baldur the Good. 57. Verily, said Gangler, it was a famous exploit which Thor performed on that journey. But did any other such events take place among the Aesir? Aye, replied Har. I can tell thee of another event which the Aesir deemed of much greater importance. Thou must know, therefore, that Baldur the Good, having been tormented with terrible dreams, indicating that his life was in great peril, communicated them to the assembled Aesir, who resolved to conjure all things to avert from him the threatened danger. Then Frigga exacted an oath from fire and water, from iron and all other metals, as well as from stones, earths, diseases, beasts, birds, poisons, and creeping things, that none of them would do any harm to Baldur. When this was done, it became a favorite pastime of the Aesir, at their meetings, to get Baldur to stand up and serve them as a mark, some hurling darts at him, some stones, while others hewed at him with their swords and battle axes. For do they what they would, none of them could harm him, and this was regarded by all as a great honor shown to Baldur. But when Loki, the son of Laufey, beheld the scene, he was sorely vexed that Baldur was not hurt. Assuming, therefore, the shape of a woman, he went to Fenrir, the mansion of Frigga. That goddess, when she saw the pretended woman, inquired of her if she knew what the Aesir were doing at their meetings. She replied that they were throwing darts and stones at Baldur without being able to hurt him. Aye, said Frigga, neither metal nor wood can hurt Baldur, for I have exacted an oath from all of them. What? Exclaimed the woman. Have all things sworn to spare Baldur? All things, replied Frigga, except one little shrub that grows on the eastern side of Valhalla, and is called mistletoe, and which I thought too young and feeble to crave an oath from. As soon as Loki heard this, he went away, and, resuming his natural shape, cut off the mistletoe, and repaired to the place where the gods were assembled. There he found Hodor standing apart, without partaking of the sports, on account of his blindness, and going up to him, said, Why dost thou not also throw something at Baldur? Because I am blind, answered Hodor, and see not where Baldur is, and have, moreover, nothing to throw with. Come then, said Loki, do like the rest, and show honor to Baldur by throwing this twig at him, and I will direct thy arm toward the place where he stands. 58. Hodor then took the mistletoe, and under the guidance of Loki, darted it at Baldur, who, pierced through and through, fell down lifeless. Surely never was there witnessed, either among gods or men, a more atrocious deed than this. When Baldur fell, the Aesir were struck speechless with horror, and then they looked at each other, and all were of one mind to lay hands on him who had done the deed, but they were obliged to delay their vengeance out of respect for the sacred place, Peacestead, where they were assembled. They at length gave vent to their grief by loud lamentations, though not one of them could find words to express the poignancy of his feelings. Odin, especially, was more sensible than the others of the loss they had suffered, for he foresaw what a detriment Baldur's death would be to the Aesir. When the gods came to themselves, Frigga asked who among them wished to gain all her love and goodwill. "For this," said she, "shall he have who will ride to Hel and try to find Baldur, and offer Hela a ransom if she will let him return to Asgard." Whereupon Hermod, surnamed the Nimble, the son of Odin, offered to undertake the journey. Odin's horse, Sleipnir, was then led forth, on which Hermod mounted and galloped away on his mission. 59. The Aesir then took the dead body and bore it to the seashore, where stood Baldur's ship Hringhorn, which passed for the largest in the world. But when they wanted to launch it in order to make Baldur's funeral pile on it, they were unable to make it stir. In this conjuncture, they sent to Jotunheim for a certain giantess named Hyrrokin, who came mounted on a wolf, having twisted serpents for a bridle. As soon as she alighted, Odin ordered 4 berserkir to hold her steed fast, who were, however, obliged to throw the animal on the ground ere they could effect their purpose. Hyrrokin then went to the ship, and with a single push set it afloat, but the motion was so violent that the fire sparkled from the rollers, and the earth shook all around. Thor, enraged at the sight, grasped his mallet, and but for the interference of the Aesir, would have broken the woman's skull. Baldur's body was then borne to the funeral pile on board the ship, and this ceremony had such an effect on Nanna, the daughter of Nep, that her heart broke with grief, and her body was burnt on the same pile with her husband's. Thor then stood up and hallowed the pile with Mjolnir, and during the ceremony kicked a dwarf named Litur, who was running before his feet, into the fire. There was a vast concourse of various kinds of people at Baldur's obsequies. First came Odin, accompanied by Frigga, the Valkyrior and his ravens. Then Frey in his car drawn by a boar named Gullinbursti, or Slidrugtani. Heimdall rode his horse called Gulltopp, and Freya drove in her chariot drawn by cats. There were also a great many frost giants and giants of the mountains present. Odin laid on the pile the gold ring called Draupnir, which afterwards acquired the property of producing every 9th night 8 rings of equal weight. Baldur's horse was led to the pile fully caparisoned and consumed in the same flames on the body of his master. From the Flight and Punishment of Loki, 61. "Evil are the deeds of Loki truly," said Gangler. "First of all in his having caused Baldur to be slain, and then preventing him from being delivered out of Hel. But was he not punished for these crimes?" "Aye," replied Har, "and in such a manner that he will long repent having committed them. When he perceived how exasperated the gods were, he fled and hid himself in the mountains. There he built him a dwelling with 4 doors, so that he could see everything that passed around him. Often in the daytime he assumed the likeness of a salmon, and concealed himself under the waters of a cascade called Franangursfors, where he employed himself in divining and circumventing whatever stratagems the Aesir might have recourse to in order to catch him. One day, as he sat in his dwelling, he took flax and yarn, and worked them into meshes in the manner that nets have since been made by fishermen. Odin, however, had descried his retreat out of Hlidskjalf, and Loki, becoming aware that the gods were approaching, threw his net into the fire and ran to conceal himself in the river. When the gods entered the house, Kvasir, who was the most distinguished among them all for his quickness and penetration, traced out in the hot embers the vestiges of the net which had been burnt, and told Odin that it must be an invention to catch fish. Whereupon they set to work and wove a net after the model they saw imprinted in the ashes. This net, when finished, they threw into the river in which Loki had hidden himself. Thor held one end of the net, and all the other gods laid hold of the other end, thus jointly drawing it along the stream. Notwithstanding all their precautions, the net passed over Loki, who had crept between two stones, and the gods only perceived that some living thing had touched the meshes. They therefore cast their net a second time, hanging so great a weight to it that it everywhere raked the bed of the river. But Loki, perceiving that he had but a short distance from the sea, swam onwards and leapt over the net into the waterfall. The Aesir instantly followed him and divided themselves into two bands. Thor, wading along in midstream, followed the net, whilst the others dragged it along towards the sea. Loki then perceived that he had only two chances of escape, either to swim out to sea or to leap again over the net. He chose the latter, but as he took a tremendous leap, Thor caught him in his hand. Being, however, extremely slippery, he would have escaped had not Thor held him fast by the tail, and this is the reason why salmons have had their tails ever since so fine and thin. The gods, having thus captured Loki, dragged him without commiseration into a cavern, wherein they placed 3 sharp-pointed rocks, boring a hole through each of them. Having also seized Loki's children, Vali and Nari, they changed the former into a wolf, and in this likeness he tore his brother to pieces and devoured him. The gods then made cords of his intestines, with which they bound Loki on the points of the rocks, one cord passing under his shoulders, another under his loins, and a third under his hams, and afterwards transformed these cords into thongs of iron. Skadi then suspended a serpent over him in such a manner that the venom should fall on his face, drop by drop. But Siguna, his wife, stands by him and receives the drops as they fall in a cup, which she empties as often as it is filled. But while she is doing this, venom falls upon Loki, which makes him howl with horror, and twist his body about so violently that the whole earth shakes, and this produces what men call earthquakes. There will Loki lie until Ragnarok. Of Ragnarok, or the twilight, are the gods, and the conflagration of the universe. 63. I have not heard before of Ragnarok, said Gangler. What hast thou to tell me about it? There are many very notable circumstances concerning it, replied Har, which I can inform thee of. In the first place will come the winter, called Fimble Winter, during which snow will fall from the 4 corners of the world. The frosts will be very severe, the wind piercing, the weather tempestuous, and the sun impart no gladness. 3 such winters shall pass away without being tempered by a single summer. 3 other similar winters follow, during which war and discord will spread over the whole globe. Brethren, for the sake of mere gain, shall kill each other, and no one shall spare either his parents or his children. 64. Then shall happen such things as may truly be accounted great prodigies. The wolf shall devour the sun, and a severe loss will that be for mankind. The other wolf will take the moon, and this too will cause great mischief. Then the stars shall be hurled from the heavens, and the earth so violently shaken that trees will be torn up by the roots, the tottering mountains tumble headlong from their foundations, and all bonds and fetters be shivered in pieces. Fenrir then breaks loose, and the sea rushes over the earth, on account of the Midgard serpent turning with giant force and gaining the land. On the waters floats the ship Naglfar, which is constructed of the nails of dead men, for which reason great care should be taken to die with paired nails, for he who dies with his nails unpaired supplies materials for the building of this vessel, which both gods and men wish may be finished as late as possible. But in this flood shall Naglfar float, and the giant Hrym be its steersman. The wolf Fenrir advancing, opens his enormous mouth, the lower jaw reaches to the earth, and the upper one to heaven, and would in fact reach still farther were there space to admit of it. Fire flashes from his eyes and nostrils. The Midgard serpent, placing himself by the side of the wolf, vomits forth floods of poison which overwhelm the air and the waters. Amidst this devastation, heaven is cleft in twain, and the sons of Muspel ride through the breach. Surtur rides first, and both before and behind him flames burning fire. His sword outshines the sun itself. Bifrost, as they ride over it, breaks to pieces. Then they direct their course to the battlefield called Vigrid. Thither also repair the wolf Fenrir and the Midgard serpent, and also Loki, with all the followers of Hel, and Hrym with all the Hrimthursar. But the sons of Muspel keep their effulgent bands apart on the field of battle, which is 100 miles long on every side. 65. Meanwhile Heimdall stands up, and with all his force sounds the Gjallarhorn to arouse the gods, who assemble without delay. Odin then rides to Mimir's well and consults Mimir how he and his warriors ought to enter into action. The ash Yggdrasil begins to shake, nor is there anything in heaven or earth exempt from fear at that terrible hour. The Aesir and all the heroes of Valhalla arm themselves and speed forth to the field, led on by Odin, with his golden helm and resplendent cuirass, and his spear called Gungnir. Odin places himself against the wolf Fenrir. Thor stands by his side, but can render him no assistance, having himself to combat with the Midgard serpent. Frey encounters Surtur, and terrible blows are exchanged ere Frey falls, and he owes his defeat to his not having that trusty sword he gave to Skirnir. That day the dog Garm, who had been chained in the Knipa cave, breaks loose. He is the most fearful monster of all, and attacks Tyr, and they kill each other. Thor gains great renown for killing the Midgard serpent, but at the same time, recoiling 9 paces, falls dead upon the spot, suffocated by the floods of venom which the dying serpent vomits forth upon him. The wolf swallows Odin, but at that instant Vidar advances, and setting his foot on the monster's lower jaw, seizes the other with his hand, and thus tears and rends him till he dies. Vidar is able to do this because he wears those shoes for which stuff has been gathering in all ages, namely, the shreds of leather which are cut off to form the toes and heels of shoes, and it is on this account that those who would render a service to the Aesir should take care to throw such shreds away. Loki and Heimdall fight, and mutually kill each other. After this, Surtur darts fire and flame over the earth, and the whole universe is consumed. Ragnarok and the world reborn. From the renovation of the universe. 67. Will any of the gods survive, and will there be any longer a heaven and an earth? Demanded Gangler. There will arise out of the sea, replied Har, another earth most lovely and verdant, with pleasant fields where the grain shall grow unsown. Vidar and Vali shall survive. Neither the flood nor Surtur's fire shall harm them. They shall dwell on the plain of Ida, where Asgard formerly stood. Thither shall come the sons of Thor, Modi and Magni, bringing with them their father's mallet Mjolnir. Baldur and Hodur shall also repair thither from the abode of death, Hell. There shall they sit and converse together, and call to mind their former knowledge and the perils they underwent, and the fight of the wolf Fenrir and the Midgard serpent. There too shall they find in the grass those golden tablets, orbs, which the Aesir once possessed. as it is said. There dwell Vidar and Vali in the gods' holy seats, when slaked Surtur's fire is but Modi and Magni will Mjolnir possess, and strife put an end to. Thou must know, moreover, that during the conflagration caused by Surtur's fire, a woman named Life, and a man named Vafthrudnir lie concealed in Hodmimir's forest. They shall feed on morning dew, and their descendants shall soon spread over the whole earth. But what thou wilt deem more wonderful is, that the sun shall have brought forth a daughter more lovely than herself, who shall go in the same track formerly trodden by her mother. And now, continued 3D, if thou hast any further questions to ask, I know not who can answer thee, for I never heard tell of anyone who could relate what will happen in the other ages of the world. Make, therefore, the best use thou canst of what has been imparted to thee. Upon this, Gangler heard a terrible noise all around him. He looked everywhere, but could see neither palace nor city, nor anything save a vast plain. He therefore set out on his return to his own kingdom, where he related all that he had seen and heard, and ever since that time, these tidings have been handed down by oral tradition. Aegir's journey to Asgard. 68. Aegir, who was well skilled in magic, once went to Asgard, where he met with a very good reception. Supper time being come, the 12 mighty Aesir, Odin, Thor, Njord, Frey, Tyr, Heimdall, Bragi, Vidar, Vali, Ullur, Hoenir and Forseti, together with the Asinjor, Frigga, Freya, Gefjon, Iduna, Gerda, Siguna, Fulla and Nanna, seated themselves on their lofty doom seats, in a hall around which were ranged swords of such surpassing brilliancy that no other light was requisite. They continued long at table, drinking mead of a very superior quality. While they were emptying their capacious drinking horns, Aegir, who sat next to Bragi, requested him to relate something concerning the Aesir. The Bragi instantly complied with his request by informing him of what had happened to Iduna. Iduna and Her Apples. From Iduna and Her Apples, 69. Once, he said, when Odin, Loki, and Hoenir went on a journey, they came to a valley where a herd of oxen were grazing, and being sadly in want of provisions did not scruple to kill one for their supper. Vain, however, were their efforts to boil the flesh. They found it, every time they took off the lid of the kettle, as raw as when first put in. While they were endeavoring to account for this singular circumstance, a noise was heard above them, and on looking up, they beheld an enormous eagle perched on the branch of an oak tree. "If ye are willing to let me have my share of the flesh," said the eagle, "it shall soon be boiled." And on their assenting to this proposal, it flew down and snatched up a leg and 2 shoulders of the ox, a proceeding which so incensed Loki that he laid hold of a large stock and made it fall pretty heavily on the eagle's back. It was, however, not an eagle that Loki struck, but the renowned giant Thiassi, clad in his eagle plumage. Loki soon found this out to his cost, for while one end of the stock stuck fast to the eagle's back, he was unable to let go his hold of the other end, and was consequently trailed by the eagle-clad giant over rocks and forests, until he was almost torn to pieces. Loki in this predicament began to sue for peace, but Thiassi told him that he should never be released from his hold until he bound himself by a solemn oath to bring Iduna and her apples out of Asgard. Loki very willingly gave his oath to effect this object, and went back in a piteous plight to his companions. 70. On his return to Asgard, Loki told Iduna that, in a forest at a short distance from the celestial residence, he had found apples growing which he thought were of a much better quality than her own, and that at all events it was worthwhile making a comparison between them. Iduna, deceived by his words, took her apples and went with him into the forest, but they had no sooner entered it than Thiassi, clad in his eagle plumage, flew rapidly towards them, and catching up Iduna, carried her treasure off with him to Jotunheim. The gods, being thus deprived of their renovating apples, soon became wrinkled and grey. Old age was creeping fast upon them when they discovered that Loki had been, as usual, the contriver of all the mischief that had befallen them. They therefore threatened him with condign punishment if he did not instantly hit upon some expedient for bringing back Iduna and her apples to Asgard. Loki, having borrowed from Freya her falcon plumage, flew to Jotunheim, and finding that Thiassi was out at sea fishing, lost no time in changing Iduna into a sparrow and flying off with her. But when Thiassi returned and became aware of what had happened, he donned his eagle plumage and flew after them. When the Aesir saw Loki approaching, holding Iduna transformed into a sparrow between his claws, and Thiassi, with his outspread eagle wings ready to overtake him, they placed on the walls of Asgard bundles of chips, which they set fire to the instant that Loki had flown over them. And as Thiassi could not stop his flight, the fire caught his plumage, and he thus fell into the power of the Aesir, who slew him within the portals of the celestial residence. When these tidings came to Thiassi's daughter, Skadi, she put on her armor and went to Asgard, fully determined to avenge her father's death. But the Aesir, having declared their willingness to atone for the deed, an amicable arrangement was entered into. Skadi was to choose a husband in Asgard, and the Aesir were to make her laugh, a feat which she flattered herself it would be impossible for anyone to accomplish. Her choice of a husband was to be determined by a mere inspection of the feet of the gods, it being stipulated that the feet should be the only part of their persons visible until she had made known her determination. In inspecting the row of feet placed before her, Skadi took a fancy to a pair which she flattered herself, from their fine proportions, must be those of Baldur. They were, however, Njord's, and Njord was accordingly given her for a husband, and as Loki managed to make her laugh by playing some diverting antics with a goat, the atonement was fully effected. It is even said that Odin did more than had been stipulated by taking out Thiassi's eyes and placing them to shine as stars in the firmament. And so we come to the end of tonight's reading. Sleep well, dream of old worlds. Until tomorrow night.